The morning Chukwuemeka packed his bags, he did not say goodbye to his daughters. He walked past 6-year-old Chioma without touching her head. He stepped over the sleeping mat of the twins, Ngozi and Nkechi, without looking back. He picked up his 1 Ghana Moscow bag, his phone, and his pride, and he walked out of that compound in Oko village like a man leaving an empty house. But the house was not empty. Inside that house was Eloho, 43 years old, no savings, no family land in her name, 6 daughters ranging from 3 months to 12 years, and a husband who had just told her, in front of their neighbors, in front of God, in front of their children, that she had failed him. "You cannot give me a son. I cannot grow old with a woman who gives me only girls. I am going to find a real wife." Those were his last words to her. Now, I want you to stop and I want you to really think about this. What would you do? No job, no support, 6 children, a village full of people waiting to say "we told you so," a body that is tired, a heart that is broken. Most people, and I mean most people, would collapse. Eloho did not collapse, but the road she took from that morning to where she is today, nobody warned her how rough it was going to be. Nobody told her she would cry in her keke at 5 a.m. so her daughters would not hear her. Nobody told her she would go 3 days eating only 1 meal so her children could eat too. This is that story, and by the time I finish telling it, you will never again underestimate a mother. Oko is a small village. In a small village, everybody knows your business before you know it yourself. By the time Chukwuemeka's keke carrying him and his bag reached the main road junction that morning, 3 women had already seen him, and before the sun moved 2 hours in the sky, the whole village was talking. Eloho's husband don't go. It be like say she don't finish. 6 girls and no son, who sent her? Eloho heard everything. She was sitting on a low wooden stool behind her house, breastfeeding her youngest, baby Adaize, 3 months old, when her neighbor, Mama Tochoko, came to her with a face that was pretending to be sorry, but was actually curious. "My sister, I just heard, is it true?" Eloho looked up at her. "Yes," she said, just 1 word, flat and quiet like still water. Mama Tochoko waited for tears, waited for her to beg for information about where Chukwuemeka went, waited for the drama that a small village feeds on. Eloho gave her nothing. She shifted baby Adaize to her other side, looked down at the baby's face and began to hum a song. Inside she was screaming, but nobody would see that.
Let me tell you about Eloho properly, because you need to understand who this woman is. She was born in Agbo, 3rd of 5 children. Her father was a secondary school teacher who believed in education for all his children, boys and girls alike. She finished secondary school. She wanted to go to university, but money finished before her dreams could start. So at 22, she learned how to sew. She became a tailor. She was not a loud woman. She was not the kind of woman who fought in the market or gossiped on the street. She was the quiet type. The type who expressed love through action. Through the way she ironed her children's uniforms with care, through the way she remembered that Ngozi did not like pepper and always cooked her food separately, through the way she would stay awake till midnight finishing a client's dress so the client would not be embarrassed at a party. She met Chukwuemeka at 26. He was fine, he was funny. He was a driver who worked for a company in Asaba. He told her he loved her 3 times before she believed him. They married at 27. The first daughter, Amarachi, came a year later and Chukwuemeka celebrated. He was happy. He bought wine for the compound. The second daughter, Chioma, came 2 years later. He was still okay. He said next one will be a boy. The third, the twins, Ngozi and Nkechi, came together and something shifted in Chukwuemeka's eyes. He did not celebrate the twins the way he celebrated Amarachi. He sat outside the hospital, and when Eloho's sister congratulated him, he just nodded. The fifth daughter, Obiajeli, they called her Obi, came when Eloho was 39, and by this time Chukwuemeka had already started changing, coming home late, smelling of other places, picking fights about small things. He had already gone to see a native doctor who told him Eloho was blocking his sons from coming. He had already started talking to another woman in the next village. Then baby Adieze came, the sixth daughter, and Chukwuemeka made his decision. He gave Eloho 2 weeks after she came back from the hospital. 2 weeks, then he packed and left. 6 daughters, and 7 mouths to feed, including her own. Eloho's savings, the small money she had put in a corner from her tailoring work, was 11,000 naira. That was everything she had. The first night after Chukwuemeka left, she put all 6 daughters to bed, even baby Adiezi, who she placed in the middle of the mat, wrapped in cloth. Then she sat at the table with a piece of paper and a pen. She wrote down everything she needed to pay. Rent for the 2 rooms, 40,000, during 3 months. School fees for Amarachi, who was in JSS 1, 15,000. School fees for Chioma, primary 5, 8,000. School fees for the twins, 8,000 each. Food, soap, kerosene, baby needs for Adeizi. She added everything up. Then she looked at her 11,000. She put her head on the table. She did not cry, not yet. She just stayed there, forehead against the paper, for a long time, breathing slowly. Then she raised her head and she said out loud, to nobody, or maybe to God, or maybe to herself, "Okay, so this is where we are. What is the next thing?" That question, what is the next thing, would become the sentence that saved her life. Not big prayers, not big plans, just, what is the next thing I can do right now? Inside Lifel.
The next morning, she went to see Baba Keke. Baba Keke was an old man in the village who owned 4 Keke Napep tricycles. He rented them out to drivers who paid him daily. His real name was Sunday Okafo, but everyone called him Baba Keke because he had been doing this business for 15 years. Eloho stood in front of him and told him what she wanted. "I want to rent one of your Keke. I want to drive it myself." Baba Keke looked at her like she had said something in a foreign language. "You? Drive Keke?" "Yes. You know how to drive Keke." She hesitated for only 1 second. "I will learn." Baba Keke began to laugh. Not a mean laugh, a surprised laugh. He shook his head. "Madam, Keke is not for women. People will not enter your Keke. This is Oko village, not Lagos." Eloho stood there and did not move. "Give me 2 weeks," she said. "If nobody enters my Keke, I will return it and you will not lose anything." Something in the way she stood, the stillness of her, the weight of her eyes, made Baba Keke stop laughing. He looked at her for a long moment. "You have a husband problem," he said quietly. "I have a feeding problem," she replied. "Husband is a different story." He rented her the Keke. Eloho did not know how to ride Keke. She had never driven any vehicle in her life. Her hands had operated a sewing machine for 15 years, not a steering handle. Baba Keke's oldest son, a young man named Ifeanyi, agreed to teach her. He was 22 years old and found the whole thing amusing at first. He thought she would give up after 1 day. The first day, she fell twice. Not badly. The Keke just tilted on the sand and she had to jump out. But her wrapper tore on the second fall and she came home with sand on her blouse and a bruise on her left knee. 12-year-old Amarachi saw her come in and her eyes went wide. "Mama, what happened?" "I am learning something new," Eloho said, and walked past her to the kitchen to start dinner. The second day she did better. She could feel the machine starting to talk to her, the way it balanced, the way it responded to her hands. She was not a fast learner, but she was a focused learner. Ifeanyi noticed this about her. She did not joke, she did not complain, she just kept practicing. By the 4th day, she could control it. By the 6th day, she could ride it smoothly on the main road. By the 8th day, she was ready. Inside Lifel. On a Tuesday morning, 5:30 a.m., while her daughters were still sleeping, Eloho tied her wrapper firmly, covered her head with a small scarf, and took the Keke out of Baba Keke's compound. She drove it to the main junction of Oko village, and she parked it there, and she waited. The first man who approached looked at her, looked at the Keke, looked back at her, and walked away to wait for another Keke. The second person, a woman carrying a basket, slowed down, looked at her, and actually smiled. "Now woman, they drive this Keke?" "Yes ma, where you they go?" The woman climbed in. That was Eloho's first passenger, a woman named Ngozi, different Ngozi from her daughter, who was going to the market 2 villages away. She paid 200 naira. Eloho held that 200 naira note in her hand for a moment before she put it in her pocket. Then she went back to the junction and waited for the next person. Oko village did not know what to do with Eloho. A woman driving Keke was strange enough, but a woman driving Keke alone, with no husband, with 6 daughters at home, this was too much for some people to process.
The men at the junction started with jokes. "Madam, you sure say you know the road? Make you no carry us go bush." She would smile. "Tell me where you want to go and I will take you." Some men refused to enter her keke. They said it was not proper. They said they did not want a woman driving them around. One man even said, loudly so she could hear, "Now the same woman we her husband run away from. God forbid I go sit inside her keke." She heard that. She kept her face straight. She did not respond. She waited for the next passenger. But here is what those men did not account for. Women. Oko village had many women. Women who went to the market. Women who went to the health center. Women who went to church, to the school, to the next village to visit relatives. And a good number of these women, when they saw Eloho at that junction, a woman like them, trying, they chose her keke deliberately. At the enter this madam's own, one market woman said, since her husband wicked her, we go support her. Word spread among the women of the village in that quiet, powerful way women's news travels. Within 2 weeks, there was a small but loyal group of female passengers who looked for Eloho's keke specifically. Some of them would even wait for her if she was not at the junction yet. One woman, Mama Chidi, who sold stockfish in the market, told Eloho something she never forgot. When man fall down, people say sorry. When woman fall down, people wait to see if she dies. So make sure you don't die. Eloho laughed for the first time in weeks. Life no balanso.
I need to tell you the parts that people don't see. Because social media will show you the success, the encouraging story, the woman who overcame. But nobody shows you the 5 a.m. Every morning, Eloho woke at 4:30. She would check on baby Adesi first. Then she would go to the kitchen, a small shed behind the main room, and start the fire. She would cook enough food for the children's morning before she left. She would make sure Amarachi, the oldest, knew her instructions for the day. Choma's medicine is on the shelf. Give Adesi pap by 8. The twins must not fight over the blue cup. Lock the door if you go to fetch water. Don't open for strangers. 12 years old, and Amarachi would nod with the face of someone much older. Then, Eloho will take her keke and go. And here is what happened some mornings on that road, when it was still dark and there was no passenger yet, and the only sound was the keke engine and the early morning birds. She cried. Not pretty crying, ugly, body-shaking crying, the kind that comes from deep inside a person's chest, from a place that has been holding too much for too long. She would cry for maybe 5 minutes, sometimes 10, while she drove slowly on the empty road. Then she would stop. Wipe her face with the edge of her scarf, breathe in, breathe out, and go back to the junction. Because the junction did not care about her feelings. The junction only cared about whether she was there. She was always there. There was one night, this was about 2 months in, when baby Adesi was sick. Fever. That terrifying kind of baby fever, where the body is burning and the child is crying weakly and you don't know what is happening inside. Eloho had exactly 1,300 naira left that week after paying Baba Keke his daily fee and buying food. She carried Adesi on her back, wrapped tight, and rode the keke herself to the health center at night. The health worker said it was malaria. The drugs cost 2,200 naira. Eloho looked at her 1,300. She looked at her Daisy. She thought about who she could borrow from. She thought about her sister in Agbo. She thought about calling her mother who was old and had nothing. The health worker, a young woman, watched her face and understood. Pay the 1,000 now. Bring the rest on Friday, she whispered. Take the drugs. The baby needs them tonight. Eloho thanked her. But when she turned around to go, her hands were shaking. She rode home in the dark. Baby Adesi strapped to her back, and she talked to the child the whole way. You will not die. I will not let you die. You will grow up and go to school and be something that people call madam. You hear me? I am your mother, and I am telling you, you will be fine. Adesi made a small sound. Eloho took it as agreement. Something Eloho did not fully realize in those early months was that her daughters were watching her. Children see everything, more than we think they see. 12-year-old Amarachi was watching how her mother came home tired, but still asked each daughter about their day. She was watching how her mother would mend her own torn dress by candlelight instead of buying a new one. She was watching how her mother counted coins every evening, quietly, when she thought no one was looking.
Amarachi started waking up earlier than her mother told her to. She started doing more without being asked. She started showing the twins how to wash their own clothes. She took over bathing Obi, who was 3 years old, every morning without complaint. One day, Eloho caught Amarachi teaching Chioma how to cook eba. She stood at the kitchen door and watched for a while without speaking. "Is the fire too high?" Amarachi was saying, very seriously, to 10-year-old Chioma. "I think so," Chioma said. "Then reduce it. If the fire is too high, the eba will burn at the bottom." Mama said so. Eloho turned away before they saw her face. She walked to the side of the house. She sat on the ground. And she allowed herself for exactly 1 minute to feel something that was not pain. Something smaller and warmer. Something like, maybe we are going to be okay. The twins, Ngozi and Nkechi, 7 years old, had their own way of responding to the situation. They became Eloho's security system. Any neighbor who came to the compound with gossip or with pity that had sharp edges underneath it, the twins would appear out of nowhere, standing close to their mother, looking at the visitor with identical suspicious faces. It made some of the nosiest neighbors uncomfortable enough to keep their mouths cleaner. Little Obi, 3 years old, had decided that her job in life was to make her mother smile. She did not fully understand what was happening, but she understood that her mother's face sometimes went very far away. So Obi would do things, ridiculous toddler things. She would put a bowl on her head and walk like she was a market woman. She would attempt to sing songs she only half knew, completely wrong, completely confident. Eloho would laugh, real laughter, the kind that surprises you. And baby Adaeze, who grew strong after that scary fever night, had enormous eyes that followed her mother everywhere. Even when Eloho was exhausted, when she picked up her Daisy, the baby would look at her with those eyes that seemed to say, "I know, I see you, keep going." 6 daughters, not a burden, an army. It just took Eloho some time to see it that way.
3 months after he left, Chukwemeka heard what his wife was doing. He was living in another village now, with the woman he had left Eloho for, a younger woman named Vera, who did not yet know that Chukwemeka's main quality was the ability to appear better than he was. The person who told him was his cousin, who had passed through Oko Market and seen Eloho driving her keke, daughters seated safely at the side of the road waiting for her, and a line of market women who preferred her keke to others. Chukwemeka did not say anything when he heard this. But something moved in his chest. He would not call it shame. He was not yet ready to call it shame. He called it surprise. Later that month, he came back to Oko. He stood outside the compound. Eloho was not there. She was working. Amarachi opened the gate, and when she saw who it was, her face did not change. She just looked at him. "Your mother is not here," Amarachi said, 12 years old, spine straight, voice flat. "Amarachi, do you not greet your father?" "Mama said we should not talk to strangers." She shut the gate. Chukwemeka stood outside for a moment. Then he left. When Eloho came home that evening and Amarachi told her, Eloho was very quiet. "Did you let him in?" "No." "Good girl." That was all she said. But that night, after everyone was asleep, she sat outside for a long time. Because feelings are not simple. Even when someone hurts you in the worst way possible, even when you are doing fine without them, a part of you still knows that something is broken, that the life you planned is gone, that your daughters do not have a father who chose them. She allowed herself to feel that. Then she went inside, went to sleep, woke up at 4:30, went back to the junction. 6 months in, something shifted. Eloho had become known, not just in Oko village, but in the 3 surrounding villages that her kekehus covered. People recognized her, the woman in the yellow scarf, the woman who drove keke with 6 daughters at home, the woman who never cheated on fare, who helped old women carry their bags, who would wait 5 minutes at a bus stop if she could see an elderly person coming slowly from a distance. Her passenger numbers grew. She was now one of the busiest kekes at the junction. Some days, she was earning more than she had imagined possible when she started.
Not rich person money, but solid, real money. Money that covered rent, money that put food properly on the table 3 times a day, money that paid school fees in full and on time. Baba Keke, who had laughed at her on that first day, now told people the story of Eloho as though it was something he had expected from the beginning. I knew that woman had something in her, he would say. I give her the keke because I see potential. Eloho would hear this and smile. She did not correct him. She went to him after 8 months and made him a proposition. I want to buy my own keke. I have saved some money. I need a small loan for the rest. I will pay you back in 6 months with interest. Baba Keke looked at her savings. He looked at her record. 8 months of never missing a daily payment, never bringing the keke back damaged, never making excuses. He gave her the loan. When Eloho's keke became her own keke, her name written on a piece of paper in Baba Keke's house as the official owner, she sat in it in the compound that night after the girls had gone to sleep. She ran her hand on the handlebars. This machine that she had not known how to ride, that she had fallen off of in the sand with her torn wrapper, that she had cried inside at 5 in the morning, that had carried her through market roads and village paths and early mornings and sick baby nights. Hers. She said a quiet prayer, not a long one, just, thank you. Help me keep going. 1 year after Chukwemeka walked out, Eloho's life looked like this. She owned 1 keke outright. She had saved enough to rent a second keke from Baba Keke's fleet, which she allowed Ifenyi, the son who taught her to ride, to drive on a profit-sharing arrangement. Her tailoring machine, which she had not touched since the abandonment, came back out. She began sewing again in the evenings, small jobs, bridesmaid dresses for women in the village who had heard her story and wanted to give her their business. Amarachi was in JSS too and had told her mother that she wanted to be a doctor. Eloho had looked at her and said, then we will find a way. Chioma had discovered a talent for numbers. Her mathematics teacher had sent a note home saying she had never seen a primary 5 student solve problems the way Chioma did. The twins, Nogozi and Kechi, were inseparable, competitive with each other about everything, and had begun helping their mother by selling small items, groundnut, pure water, after school at the compound gate. Their idea, not their mother's. Eloho had cried when she found out, and then told them firmly they must finish homework first. Little Obi had grown into a 4-year-old who greeted every single person who passed the compound with a loud good morning or good afternoon, regardless of the time. She had become a small village celebrity. And Adizi, the baby whose fever had terrified Eloho that night, was 1 year old, fat and healthy, walking along the walls, threatening to enter everything she should not enter, and lighting up every room with her face.
Let me talk to you directly for a moment. Because I could end this story with Eloho getting rich and Chukwemeka coming back begging and a dramatic final confrontation. That would make good entertainment. But this is not that kind of story. Chukwemeka did come back. Twice. The second time with his head bowed, talking about how the woman he had left Eloho for had left him, and how he had made a mistake, and how he missed his daughters. Eloho sat across from him. She listened to everything he said. Then she said, I forgive you for my own peace, but you cannot come back into this house because I built this house now and I did not build it for you. He left. She does not hate him. She does not have space for hate. Hate takes energy that she needs for other things. But she is also not waiting for any man to complete her life. She completed it herself, imperfectly, with sand on her clothes and tears at 5 a.m. and borrowed money and 12-year-olds who learned to cook eba to help their mother. But she completed it. Here is what I want you to take from Eloho's story. Eloho did not have a secret. She did not have a mentor. She did not have capital or connections or a backup plan. She had 11,000 naira, 6 daughters, a village watching her to see if she would fall, and a question she kept asking herself every single day. What is the next thing? Not the next 10 years, not the perfect plan, just the next thing. Learn to ride the keke, that was the next thing. Go to the junction, that was the next thing. Wait for the first passenger, that was the next thing. Come back tomorrow, that was the next thing. The journey from 11,000 naira and a broken life to a woman who owns her keke and is sending her daughters to school, that journey is made up of thousands of small next things, not one heroic moment. Thousands of ordinary, tired, painful, determined next things.
There is a woman watching this video right now who feels like Eloho felt on that first night. Table in front of you, paper with big numbers, small money that cannot cover the big numbers, people who are watching to see how badly you will fail. I want to talk to that woman. You are not finished. I know it feels like you are. I know the weight of it feels like something no person should have to carry. I know you are tired in a way that sleep cannot fix, but you are not finished. Eloho was 43 years old. No Kiki experience, no savings, 6 children. She started from that. She did not start from strength. She started from necessity. And necessity, when a mother's children are hungry, is the most powerful fuel in the world. Ask yourself one question tonight. Not how will I survive this? That question is too big. Ask yourself, what is the next thing? Just the next thing. And then do it. For every mother in Oko, for every woman the village wrote off, for every daughter watching her mother decide whether to stand up or stay down. Stand up. Your daughters are watching. If this story moved you, share it with one person who needs to hear it today. And drop in the comments, what was the moment in Eloho's story that hit you hardest? I read every single comment. See you in the next one.